They told her she was just help. They told her to keep her head down and her mouth shut. But when Soraya Jenkins broke protocol to speak the only language that mattered to a frightened boy, she didn't know the man watching her was Justin Sterling, the most ruthless CEO in New York. That single silent gesture didn't just get her fired. It unlocked a conspiracy worth billions, exposed a family secret buried for decades, and turned a simple waitress into the most powerful woman in the boardroom. You think you know how this ends? You have no idea. This is the true story of the sign that changed everything. If you walk down West 57th Street in Manhattan, past the tourists gawking at the skyscrapers and the steam rising from the subway grates, you will find a heavy, matte black door with no handle and no sign. This is L'Obsidienne. To get in, you don't just need money, you need to be somebody. For Soraya Jenkins, L'Obsidienne wasn't a symbol of status, it was a battlefield. It was 6:45 p.m. on a rainy Tuesday in November. Inside, the restaurant smelled of white truffle oil, aged mahogany, and fear. Soraya adjusted the collar of her starch-white uniform, wincing as the fabric rubbed against the raw skin on her neck. A nervous rash she'd developed 3 months ago when she started working under manager Bryce. "Jenkins!" The snap of fingers echoed in the prep station. Soraya jumped, nearly dropping a tray of polished silverware. Manager Bryce loomed over her. He was a man who wore suits that were too tight, as if trying to physically contain his own ego. His face was perpetually flushed, and his eyes scanned the staff like a predator looking for a limping gazelle. "Table 4 is spotting," Bryce hissed, pointing a manicured finger toward a booth near the window. "I see a water spot on the tertiary wine glass. Do you want to be fired, Jenkins? Because there are 10 girls with better resumes waiting in the alley right now who would kill for your shifts." "I'm sorry, Mr. Bryce. I'll fix it immediately," Soraya said, her voice steady despite the thumping of her heart. "You're not here to be sorry. You're here to be invisible," Bryce sneered, leaning in close. "Tonight is the Sterling reservation. If you embarrass me, you won't just lose this job. I'll make sure you never serve a burger at a diner in this state again." Soraya nodded, keeping her eyes on the floor. She grabbed a polishing cloth and rushed to table 4. She couldn't lose this job. The rent for the shoebox apartment in Queens was 3 days late. But that wasn't the real pressure. The real pressure was Toby. Her 10-year-old brother was waiting at Mrs. Higgins's apartment downstairs. Toby needed hearing aids, not the cheap ones that buzzed and gave him migraines, but the digital ones that cost $6,000, the ones that would let him hear the teacher, hear the traffic, hear her say she loved him. Soraya buffed the glass furiously. "Just get through tonight," she told herself. "Just get the tips. Get the money. Fix Toby." The restaurant began to fill. The clientele of L'Obsidienne were the titans of industry, hedge fund managers, tech moguls, fading actresses. They treated the staff like furniture. Soraya was used to it. She moved with the grace of a ghost, pouring water, crumb-dusting tables, and reciting specials without ever making direct eye contact unless spoken to. "Champagne, madam?" she asked a woman dripping in diamonds at table 2. The woman didn't even look up from her phone. She just waved a hand vaguely. Soraya poured. Around 8 p.m., the atmosphere in the room shifted. It was a subtle change, like the air pressure dropping before a storm. The heavy black doors swung open, held by 2 security guards. Manager Bryce practically sprinted to the entrance, his face transformed into a mask of obsequious delight. "Mr. Sterling," Bryce cooed, bowing slightly. "Welcome. We have the private alcove prepared as requested." Walking through the door was Justin Sterling. At 42, he was the face of Sterling Dynamics, a global conglomerate that owned everything from shipping lines to artificial intelligence data centers. He was tall, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Soraya's entire life earnings. His face was sharp, handsome, and terrifyingly cold. He didn't smile. He didn't look at Bryce. He just walked forward. But he wasn't alone. Trailing behind him, looking entirely out of place, was a boy. He looked to be about 12 years old. He wore a hoodie, an expensive one, but still a hoodie, and he was looking at the floor, his shoulders hunched. Soraya paused near the kitchen pass, watching. She recognized that posture. It was the same way Toby stood when he was overwhelmed by the world he couldn't quite understand. "Right this way," Bryce said, guiding them. He shot a look of disdain at the boy in the hoodie, clearly offended that someone violating the dress code was entering his dining room, even if it was a Sterling. Justin sat, pulling out a tablet immediately. The boy sat opposite him, looking around the room with wide, darting eyes. He looked terrified. "Jenkins," Bryce whispered harshly, grabbing Soraya's arm as she passed. "You have table 1, the Sterling table. Do not speak unless spoken to. Pour the water. Take the order. Disappear." The boy is slow, apparently. Don't engage. Soraya felt a prickle of irritation at the word slow, but she nodded. "Yes, sir." She took the crystal pitcher and approached the most powerful table in New York City. She didn't know it yet, but the invisible wall she had built around herself was about to shatter. The tension at table 1 was palpable. Justin Sterling was scrolling through emails, his thumb moving rhythmically against the glass screen. He hadn't said a word to the boy. The boy, whose name Soraya would later learn was Leo, was staring at the menu. But he wasn't reading it. His eyes were glazed over, and his hands were gripping the tablecloth so hard his knuckles were white. Soraya approached the table from the left. "Good evening, gentlemen. Still or sparkling?" Justin didn't look up. "Sparkling for me." "Tap for the boy." Soraya poured the water. She moved to the boy's side. As she poured the tap water into his glass, she saw him flinch. A waiter at the neighboring table had dropped a fork, a sharp, high-pitched clang. Most people would ignore it, but Leo didn't just hear it. He didn't react to the sound at all. He reacted to the vibration of the waiter bumping the chair behind him. He spun around, eyes wide with panic, knocking the water glass Soraya had just filled. Crash. Ice and water flooded the pristine white tablecloth. The crystal shattered on the floor. The entire restaurant went silent. Justin Sterling slammed his tablet down. He looked at the mess, then at the boy. His expression wasn't angry, it was exhausted. A deep, weary disappointment that was far more painful than rage. "Leo," Justin said, his voice low but stern. "Focus." The boy didn't respond. He was looking at his father's lips, trying to read them, but Justin had turned his head away, sighing. Manager Bryce materialized out of thin air. "Oh my God, I am so sorry, Mr. Sterling. So clumsy." He glared at Soraya. "Jenkins, clean this up. I told you to be careful." "It wasn't her fault," Justin said dismissively. "My son is difficult." "I'll have it cleaned in a moment," Bryce said, snapping his fingers at a busboy. Then Bryce did something unforgivable. He leaned over the table, right into the boy's face, and spoke loudly and slowly, as if the boy were stupid. "Do you want a napkin?" Leo recoiled, terror filling his face. He couldn't hear the words, but he could see the aggression in the man's face. He let out a strange, guttural noise, a sound of frustration from someone who cannot modulate their own voice. People at other tables began to whisper. Is he drunk? Is he on drugs? Why did Sterling bring him here? Soraya was on her knees, picking up shards of glass. She looked up at Leo. She saw the tears welling in his eyes. She saw the way he was tapping his thumb against his pinky finger, a self-soothing tick. She looked at Justin. The billionaire looked defeated. He looked like a man who could buy countries but couldn't buy a connection with his own son. "Don't do it," a voice in Soraya's head warned. "Bryce is watching. You need the money. You need the job." But then she thought of Toby. She thought of how Toby came home crying because the bus driver yelled at him when he didn't hear the stop. Soraya stood up. She ignored the glass on the floor. She ignored Bryce, who was about to grab Leo's arm to guide him out of the booth. Soraya stepped between Bryce and the boy. "Back off," she said to her manager. It was a whisper, but it had the weight of iron. Bryce's jaw dropped. "Excuse me." Soraya turned her back on her boss. She looked directly at Leo. She didn't shout. She didn't exaggerate her mouth. She raised her hands. "Are you okay?" She signed in American Sign Language, ASL. Her movements were fluid, practiced, and gentle. Leo froze. The panic in his eyes halted. He blinked, looking at her hands, then at her face. He took a shaky breath. "Yes," he signed back, his fingers trembling. "He is scary," he pointed at Bryce. Soraya smiled, a genuine warm smile that reached her eyes. "He is just a loud turkey," she signed. "Ignore him." Leo let out a sharp breath that might have been a laugh. The tension in his shoulders dropped 3 inches. "I am Soraya," she signed. "I like your hoodie. Is it warm?" "Very warm," Leo signed back. "I want to go home. Too many lights here." "I know," Soraya signed. "But the food is good. Do you like steak?" Soraya was so focused on the boy that she had forgotten where she was. She had forgotten the billionaire sitting 3 feet away. When she finally looked up, she expected to see Justin Sterling angry. She expected Bryce to be dragging her away by her hair. Instead, she found Justin Sterling staring at her. He wasn't looking at his tablet. He was looking at her hands. His face had lost its cold, hard mask. He looked stunned, completely and utterly stunned. "You," Justin started, his voice cracking slightly. "You speak ASL?" "Yes, sir," Soraya said, her voice returning to her waitress tone. "My brother is deaf." Bryce, sensing he was losing control of the narrative, stepped in. "Mr. Sterling, I apologize for her informality. She will be removed immediately. Jenkins, get to the kitchen. Now." "No," Justin said. He didn't raise his voice, but the command stopped Bryce dead in his tracks. Justin looked at Soraya. "Stay, please." He gestured to the empty chair next to Leo. Can you ask him what he wants to eat? He hasn't ordered food in a restaurant in 3 years. We usually just order for him." Soraya hesitated. This was against every protocol in the book. A waitress sitting at the table? She looked at Leo. He was looking at her like she was a lifeline in a turbulent ocean. "I can," Soraya said. She ignored Bryce's murderous glare and knelt beside the table. She wouldn't sit. That was too far. So she was eye level with Leo. For the next 10 minutes, the entire restaurant watched in confusion as the waitress and the billionaire's son had a silent, animated conversation. Leo pointed at the menu. Soraya explained what confit meant, using signs for cooking and fat. Leo made a face. Soraya laughed. Finally, Soraya stood up. "He wants the burger," Soraya told Justin. "Plain, no pickles. And he wants to know if he can have a chocolate milkshake, even though it's not on the menu." Justin looked at his son. Leo gave a shy thumbs up. For the first time since he walked in, Justin Sterling smiled. It transformed his face. "Tell him yes, the biggest milkshake you have." Soraya signed the message. Leo beamed. "Thank you," Justin said to Soraya. His eyes lingered on her name tag. "Soraya." "I'll put the order in," she said softly. She walked back to the kitchen. Her legs were shaking. As soon as the swing doors closed behind her, Bryce was there. He grabbed her shoulder and shoved her against the stainless steel counter. "You think you're clever?" Bryce spat, his face purple with rage. "Humiliating me? Sitting with the guest? You're done, Jenkins. You finish this table because Sterling asked for you, but the second they pay the check, you're fired. Pack your locker." Soraya felt the blood drain from her face. "Mr. Bryce, please, I have rent." "My brother." "I don't care about your brother," Bryce hissed. "Get back out there." The rest of the service was a blur. Soraya moved on autopilot. Every time she went to table 1, the atmosphere was different. Leo was eating his burger, looking relaxed. Justin was watching him, occasionally trying to copy a sign Soraya had taught him, the sign for good. Soraya tried to be professional, but her heart was breaking. She had lost her job. She didn't know how she would tell Toby they couldn't get the hearing aids this month, or next month, or maybe ever. When it was time for the check, Justin declined dessert. He simply asked for the bill. Soraya brought the leather folder. "Thank you for dining with us, Mr. Sterling." Justin didn't open the folder. He pulled out a black American Express card and laid it on top. Then he took a heavy fountain pen from his jacket pocket. He reached for a linen napkin, one of the pristine white ones, and wrote something on it. He stood up. Leo stood up, wiping ketchup off his lip. Leo looked at Soraya and signed, "Thank you, Soraya. You are nice." Soraya fought back tears. "You are welcome, Leo. Be brave." Leo nodded and followed his father. Justin stopped in front of Soraya. He looked at her, really looked at her, analyzing her worn shoes, her tired eyes, the nervous rash on her neck. "Bryce is firing you, isn't he?" Justin asked quietly. Soraya looked down. "Yes, sir." "Good," Justin said. Soraya's head snapped up. She felt like she'd been slapped. "Excuse me?" "You're too good for this place," Justin said. He pressed the linen napkin into her hand. "Don't look at this until you get home, and answer your phone tomorrow at 9 a.m. With that, he walked out. Bryce descended like a vulture the moment the door closed. "Get out!" he barked. "Leave your apron. Don't come back." Soraya walked to the locker room. She stripped off the uniform, putting on her jeans and worn-out sweater. She took her bag. She walked out the back door, into the rain, crying. She took the subway back to Queens. The car was empty. The lights flickered. She felt heavy, defeated. When she finally got into her apartment, she checked on Toby. He was asleep, his old, buzzing hearing aid on the nightstand. She kissed his forehead. She went to the kitchen table and sat down, burying her face in her hands. What am I going to do? Then she remembered the napkin. She pulled the crumpled linen cloth out of her pocket. It was heavy, high-quality fabric. On it, in sharp, angular handwriting, was a name and a number. Richard Halloway, Chief of Staff, Sterling Dynamics. And below that, a note. "We don't need a waitress. We need a bridge. Interview, tomorrow, 9 a.m. Sterling Tower, 80th floor. Starting salary, 120,000 year plus benefits. Bring this napkin." Soraya stared at the number. $120,000. That was 4 times what she made here. It was enough for the hearing aids. It was enough for a new apartment. But then she flipped the napkin over. There was more writing on the back. "P.S. Watch your back. Bryce isn't just a manager. He calls my brother-in-law. There are people who don't want Leo to speak. If you take this job, you are taking a side in a war." Soraya dropped the napkin. Her hands were shaking. A war? She just wanted to pay rent. Her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. It was 11:30 p.m. She picked it up. "Hello? Soraya Jenkins?" A man's voice. Smooth. Dangerous. Not Justin. "Yes?" "This is Bryce," the voice sneered. but he sounded different, less hysterical, more calculating. "I know Sterling gave you a note. I suggest you burn it. If you show up at Sterling Tower tomorrow, what happened to the wine glass tonight will look like a picnic compared to what happens to you. Stay invisible, Soraya. For Toby's sake." The line went dead. Soraya stared at the phone. She looked at the napkin. She looked at Toby's bedroom door. They had threatened her brother. Soraya Jenkins had spent her whole life being invisible. She had spent her whole life backing down. She stood up. She walked to the sink, poured a glass of water, and drank it in one gulp. She wasn't going to burn the napkin. She was going to iron it. The lobby of Sterling Tower made L'Obsidienne look like a gas station. The floors were Italian marble. The ceiling was 3 stories high, and the air smelled of ozone and money. Soraya stood at the security desk at 8:55 a.m. She was wearing her only blazer, a thrift store find that smelled faintly of lavender, and holding the linen napkin like a shield. Her heart was hammering against her ribs. She had checked on Toby 3 times before leaving, terrified that Bryce's threat was real. She had walked him to school herself and asked Mrs. Higgins to pick him up. "Name?" the security guard asked, not looking up. "Soraya Jenkins. I have a 9:00 a.m. with Mr. Halloway." The guard paused. He typed something into his console. A red light flashed. He looked up, his eyes narrowing. "Jenkins, I don't have you on the list." Soraya's stomach dropped. Bryce. He had gotten to the list. "Please check again. Mr. Justin Sterling asked me to come." "Ma'am, if you're not on the list, you need to leave. Now." The guard stood up, his hand hovering near his belt. Soraya felt the panic rising. It was happening again. The invisible wall. "You don't belong here." She looked at the elevator bank. A group of suits was walking through. In the middle of them was a man with silver hair and a face carved from granite. It was the man who had been with Justin the night before. Not Bryce, but the man who had opened the car door. Richard Halloway. "Mr. Halloway!" Soraya shouted. The guard grabbed her arm. "Hey, keep it down!" Richard Halloway stopped. He turned slowly. He saw the scuffle at the desk. He didn't smile. He just tapped his watch and pointed at the guard. "Let her through, Mike." Richard's voice carried across the lobby effortlessly. The guard released her immediately. "Sorry, Mr. Halloway. She wasn't in the system." "I know," Richard said, walking over to Soraya. "Because I didn't put her in the system. The system leaks." He looked at Soraya. "You kept the napkin." "I ironed it," Soraya said, trying to stop her hands from shaking. Richard's lip quirked upward, a microscopic smile. "Follow me. Don't speak to anyone in the elevator." The ride to the 80th floor took 40 seconds. When the doors opened, Soraya stepped into a world of panoramic views and silence. It was a stark contrast to the chaos of the restaurant kitchen. Richard led her into a conference room that seemed to float above the city. Sitting at the head of the table was not Justin Sterling, but a man Soraya didn't know. He was younger than Justin, perhaps 35, with slicked-back blonde hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "So this is the Mary Poppins my brother-in-law found," the man said. He didn't stand up. Richard stiffened beside Soraya. "Soraya, this is Lucas Montclair, Mr. Sterling's brother-in-law and a member of the board of directors." Soraya felt a chill. The note. "Bryce calls my brother-in-law. This was him. This was the man who had ordered the threat on her brother." She forced herself to stand tall. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Montclair." Lucas laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. "Let's cut the pleasantries. Justin is sentimental. He thinks because you know some hand signals you can fix a broken boy. But Leo isn't just deaf, Miss Jenkins. He's damaged, unstable." "He didn't seem unstable to me," Soraya said, surprised by her own boldness. He seemed lonely. Lucas's eyes flashed. You spent 10 minutes with him. I've spent 10 years trying to manage his outbursts. Sterling Dynamics is about to launch an IPO for our new AI division. The face of this family needs to be perfect. Leo is a liability. He slid a check across the table. Here is a check for $50,000, Lucas said. Take it. Go home. Buy your brother whatever he needs, and forget you ever met the Sterlings. Soraya looked at the check. It was more money than she had ever seen. It could solve everything. But she remembered Leo's eyes. He is scary. Leo had signed about Bryce. But looking at Lucas, she realized Bryce was just a puppet. This man was the puppeteer. If she took the money, Leo would be left alone in this shark tank. Soraya reached out and took the check. Lucas smirked. Then Soraya ripped it in half. The sound was loud in the quiet room. I'm here for the interview, Soraya said. Lucas stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. You are making a mistake, a very dangerous mistake. That is enough, Lucas, a deep voice boomed from the doorway. Justin Sterling walked in. He looked tired, but his presence filled the room. He didn't look at Lucas. He looked at Soraya. You passed, Justin said. Lucas adjusted his tie, his face red. Justin, you can't be serious. She's a waitress. She's the only person Leo has responded to in 6 months, Justin said coldly. Get out of my office, Lucas. Lucas gathered his things. As he passed Soraya, he leaned in, his voice a whisper only she could hear. The check was the easy way out. Now you get the hard way. When they were alone, Justin sank into a chair. He gestured for Soraya to sit. I apologize for him, Justin said. He cares about the company image. He thinks your son is broken, Soraya said bluntly. Is he? Justin asked. It was a vulnerable question. Doctors tell me he has behavioral issues. He throws things. He screams. He refuses to learn to read lips. He's not broken, Mr. Sterling. He's frustrated, Soraya explained. Imagine being locked in a glass box where everyone is shouting at you, but you can't hear them. And when you try to speak, they punish you for making noise. He doesn't need a doctor. He needs a language. Justin stared at her for a long moment. The job is yours. You will live at the estate in Westchester. You will be his governess. Your primary goal is to get him ready for the Winter Gala in 2 months. I want him to stand on that stage and not be afraid. I can do that, Soraya said. One condition, Justin said. He slid a thick document across the table. An NDA. What happens in the house stays in the house. If you speak to the press, if you speak to Lucas, if you leak anything, you will be liable for $10 million. Soraya signed it without hesitating. When do I start? Pack your bags, Justin said. The car is waiting downstairs. And Soraya, bring your brother. There's a guest cottage on the grounds. I don't want you worrying about his safety. Soraya felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you. Justin didn't smile. Don't thank me yet. You haven't seen the house. The Sterling estate was less of a home and more of a fortress. It was a sprawling Gothic mansion made of grey stone, sitting on 300 acres of forest. It was beautiful, but cold. Soraya and Toby were set up in the guest cottage, which was nicer than any apartment Soraya had ever seen. Once Toby was settled with a new video game system Justin had provided, Soraya walked up the main driveway to the big house. She was met at the door not by Justin, but by the head housekeeper, Mrs. Gable. Mrs. Gable was a severe woman who looked like she hadn't smiled since the Reagan administration. Mr. Sterling has returned to the city for business, Mrs. Gable said. He is rarely here during the week. You are to report to the West Wing. That is Master Leo's domain." The West Wing was quiet. Too quiet. Soraya found Leo in a room that looked like a sterile hospital ward. There were no toys, no posters, just beige walls and a heavy oak desk. Leo was sitting on the floor, staring at a wall. He was rocking back and forth. "Leo?" Soraya waved her hand to catch his peripheral vision. Leo looked up. His eyes widened. He scrambled to his feet and ran to her. He didn't hug her. He didn't know her well enough. But he grabbed her sleeve. "You came back," he signed. "I work here now," Soraya signed. "I am your teacher." Leo's face fell. "Teachers are mean. They hit my hands when I don't talk right." Soraya's heart broke. No hitting. Only talking with hands. "And maybe video games?" Leo smiled. It was the first real smile she'd seen in the house. For the next 3 weeks, Soraya entered a routine. She realized quickly that Leo wasn't just deaf. He was being drugged. Every morning, a nurse employed by Lucas Montclair came in and gave Leo vitamins. Soraya noticed that an hour after the vitamins, Leo would become lethargic and foggy. One morning, Soraya intercepted the nurse. "What is that?" Soraya asked. "Sedatives," the nurse said casually. "Mr. Montclair says he gets agitated." "He gets agitated because he's bored," Soraya snapped. "No more. Flush them." "I take my orders from Mr. Montclair," the nurse sneered. "I am his governess," Soraya said, stepping closer. "And if you drug him again, I will tell Justin Sterling you are poisoning his air." The nurse paled. The pills stopped. The change in Leo was miraculous. Within a week, the fog lifted. Soraya and Leo spent hours in the gardens. She taught him ASL at a rapid pace. He was brilliant. He soaked up vocabulary like a sponge. They developed private signs for the people in the house. Justin was the tall suit. Mrs. Gable was the frown. Lucas was the snake. But as Leo got better, the house got darker. Soraya began to notice things. Files missing from the study. Arguments in the hallway between Mrs. Gable and men in dark suits who visited when Justin wasn't there. One night, a storm knocked out the power. Soraya was in the kitchen getting warm milk for Toby when she heard voices in the library. She knew Justin was in Tokyo on business. She crept closer to the door. It was Lucas Montclair, and he was talking to Mrs. Gable. "The gala is the deadline," Lucas was saying. "If the boy performs well, the board won't vote to remove Justin as CEO. They'll see a stable family unit. We need the boy to fail." "The new girl is a problem," Mrs. Gable's voice rasped. "She has him off the meds. He's happy. He's communicating." "Then we need to remove the girl," Lucas said. "But we can't just fire her. Justin is infatuated with her results. We need to destroy her credibility. Completely." "How?" "The blue heron," Lucas said. "The diamond watch Justin bought for his late wife. It's in the safe. Get it." Soraya stifled a gasp. She backed away, her heart racing. They were going to frame her. She ran back to the cottage. She needed to tell Justin, but he was in Tokyo, and if she called him, Lucas would know. The phones in the house were monitored. She had seen the blinking lights on the server in the basement. She had to wait. She had to protect Leo until the gala. The next morning, Soraya went to Leo. "Leo, listen to me," she signed, her face serious. "Bad people want to make you look silly at the big party." Leo frowned. "The snake?" "Yes, the snake. He wants you to scream. He wants you to be scared." Leo clenched his fists. "I am not scared." "Good," Soraya signed. "But we need a plan, a secret plan. Just you and me." Leo nodded. "Partners." The night of the winter gala arrived. The Sterling estate had been transformed. A massive tent was erected on the lawn, filled with 500 of New York's elite. Senators, billionaires, celebrities. Justin had returned only hours before. He looked exhausted. He came to the nursery while Soraya was helping Leo into his tuxedo. "You look handsome, Leo," Justin said. He looked at Soraya. "Thank you. The reports. I hear he is doing well." "He is doing amazing," Soraya said. She wanted to scream. "Your brother-in-law is trying to destroy you." But Lucas was standing right in the doorway, smiling like a shark. "Time to go down," Lucas said. "The shareholders are waiting." The plan was simple. Justin would give a speech, introduce Leo, and Leo would simply wave. That was all he had to do. But Soraya knew Lucas had something else planned. As they walked down the grand staircase, Mrs. Gable bumped into Soraya. "Watch it!" the housekeeper snapped. Soraya felt a tug on her handbag, which was slung over her shoulder. She froze. She knew instantly what had happened. She checked the bag. There, nestled between her phone and her lipstick, was a heavy, velvet box. The Blue Heron watch. Panic, cold and sharp, washed over her. If she tried to dump it now, cameras would see. If she kept it, they would search her. She looked at Lucas. He was watching her from the bottom of the stairs, checking his watch. He was waiting for the police. They reached the ballroom. The lights were blinding. Justin took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," Justin began, "tonight is about the future, and my future is my family." Soraya stood in the wings with Leo. She knelt down. "Leo, listen, she signed fast. In my bag there is a bad thing. The snake put it there. Police are coming to take me away." Leo's eyes went wide with terror. "No." "Yes, Soraya signed. I cannot stop it." "But you can. Do not scream. Do not cry. If they take me, you must be strong. You must show your father the truth." "How?" Leo asked, his hands trembling. "Use your voice," Soraya signed. "Not your mouth, your mind." Suddenly, 2 police officers appeared at the side of the stage. Lucas pointed at Soraya. "That's her!" Lucas shouted, his voice cutting through Justin's speech. "Stop the event! We have a thief!" The room went silent. Justin stopped speaking. "Lucas, what are you doing?" "She stole the Blue Heron," Lucas declared, marching up the steps. "I saw her take it from the safe. Officer, search her bag." "No," Justin said, stepping in front of Soraya. "This is ridiculous. Soraya wouldn't—" "Check the bag, Justin!" Lucas yelled. The officer stepped forward. "Ma'am, give me the bag." Soraya looked at Justin. "I didn't take it. He planted it." "Lies!" Mrs. Gable shouted from the crowd. "I saw her. The officer took the bag. He opened it. He pulled out the velvet box. He opened it. The Blue Heron watch, worth $2 million, sparkled under the stage lights." The crowd gasped. Justin looked at the watch. Then he looked at Soraya. The betrayal in his eyes was devastating. He didn't know about the conspiracy. He just saw the evidence. "Soraya?" Justin whispered. "I didn't," she pleaded. "Arrest her," Lucas commanded. The officer grabbed Soraya's wrists. Handcuffs clicked. "No!" Soraya screamed. "Toby, my brother is in the cottage. Don't leave him." "CPS is already on the way for the boy," Lucas said smoothly. "You're an unfit guardian." That broke her. Soraya struggled, screaming. "Lucas, you monster! Justin, listen to me. He's drugging Leo. He's trying to steal the company." "Get her out of here," Lucas said, shaking his head, as if he were sad. "She's hysterical." As they dragged Soraya away, she looked back at the stage. Leo was standing there, alone. The crowd was murmuring. Justin had his head in his hands. Lucas was walking toward the microphone to apologize for the disruption and likely announce Justin's resignation due to the stress. It was over. The bad guys had won. But then a sound cut through the noise. It wasn't a scream. It was a rhythmic, heavy thumping. Leo had walked to the microphone stand. He took the microphone out of the clip. He didn't speak into it. He dropped it on the floor. Thud. Then he picked up a heavy crystal water pitcher from the podium. He smashed it on the ground. Crash. The feedback squealed. The room went dead silent. Everyone looked at the boy. Leo looked at his father. He looked at Lucas. Then, slowly, deliberately, Leo raised his hands. He didn't sign to Soraya. He signed to the room. And he didn't just sign. He pulled a piece of paper from his pocket, a speech Soraya had helped him write, just in case. He looked at the teleprompter operator, pointing at his paper. The operator, confused, zoomed the camera in on Leo's hands and the paper. Leo's signs were projected onto the massive screens behind the stage. "My father is blind," Leo signed. The crowd murmured. Justin looked up. Leo turned to Lucas. "But my uncle is the devil." Lucas froze. He lunged for the boy. "Get him off the stage. He's having an episode." But Justin moved faster. He blocked Lucas. "Let him speak." Leo continued, his signs furious and sharp. The watch was in the snake's pocket. I saw him put it in Soraya's bag. Leo pointed at the security cameras in the corner of the ballroom. "Check the tape." 7:42 p.m. Hallway B. Lucas Montclair's face went white. He hadn't known Leo could tell time. He hadn't known Leo was watching. Justin looked at Lucas. Then he looked at the head of security, who was standing by the stage. "Check the tape, now." "Justin, the boy is retarded!" Lucas shouted, forgetting the microphone was still on the floor, picking up every word. "He doesn't know what he's saying." The slur echoed through the ballroom. Justin Sterling's face changed. The sadness vanished. In its place was the cold, terrifying rage of a titan. "Don't," Justin said softly. "Call my son that." The security chief ran onto the stage, holding a tablet. He showed it to Justin. Justin watched the screen. He saw the grainy footage of Lucas sliding the box into Soraya's bag while Mrs. Gable distracted her. Justin looked at the police officers who were holding Soraya at the exit. "Release her," Justin commanded, "and arrest him." He pointed at Lucas. Pandemonium broke out. Lucas tried to run, but Richard Halloway tripped him. The police swarmed. Soraya stood by the door, rubbing her wrists. She watched as Justin hugged Leo, really hugged him, for the first time. She turned to leave. She was done. She had survived, but she was done with this world. "Soraya!" She stopped. Justin was running across the ballroom floor, sliding on the polished wood. He stopped in front of her. He was breathless. "Don't go," he said. "I have to get Toby," Soraya said, her voice numb. "Toby is fine. I sent Richard to the cottage the moment Lucas started yelling. CPS never came." Justin reached out, but didn't touch her. "I am so sorry. I didn't see it. I was so busy trying to run the world. I didn't see the war in my own house." Soraya looked at him. "You saw it, Justin. You just didn't want to believe it." Justin nodded, ashamed. "You're right. But I see it now. Please, stay. Not as a governess." "Then as what?" Soraya asked. Justin looked back at the stage, where Leo was being applauded by the shareholders. "As my partner," Justin said. "In everything." The morning after the Winter Gala, the world outside the Sterling estate was screaming. News vans were parked 3 deep along the perimeter fence of the Westchester property. The headlines were splashing across every screen in America. "The silent heir speaks." "Billionaire brother-in-law arrested in gala shocker." And "Who is the mystery governess?" Inside the house, however, there was a profound, almost holy silence. It wasn't the silence of repression that had haunted these halls for a decade. It was the silence of a fever breaking. Soraya sat at the kitchen island, nursing a cup of tea. Her hands were still trembling slightly. She watched as Justin Sterling stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear. He wasn't yelling. The Justin who barked orders was gone. This Justin spoke with a terrifyingly quiet precision. "No, I don't care what the PR team suggests," Justin said, his voice low. "Lucas is to be stripped of all board privileges immediately. His equity is frozen pending the fraud investigation, and release the unedited footage of the ballroom, all of it. I want everyone to see exactly what my son had to say." He hung up and turned to Soraya. The morning light caught the grey at his temples. He looked exhausted, stripped of his armour, and devastatingly human. "They took Mrs. Gable into custody an hour ago," Justin said, walking over to the island. "She kept detailed ledgers. It seems she and Lucas have been siphoning funds from the charitable trust for 5 years. They were betting against the company stock, Soraya. They needed me to fail so they could short the shares." Soraya shook her head, tracing the rim of her mug. "They didn't just want you to fail, Justin. They wanted Leo to fail. They used a child as collateral damage for a stock trade." Justin winced. He pulled out a stool and sat opposite her, not at the head of the table, but right across from her. He reached out, his fingers hovering over hers before he finally committed, covering her hand with his. His skin was warm. "I know," he rasped. "I was the CAO of a global empire, Soraya. I could predict market trends in Tokyo and shipping delays in Hamburg. But I couldn't see that my own brother-in-law was poisoning my son in the next room. I was so blind." "You were grieving," Soraya said softly. "Grief makes the world foggy." Lucas took advantage of the fog. "And you cleared it," Justin said, his thumb brushing her knuckle. "You didn't just teach Leo to sign, you taught me to look." The moment was shattered, or perhaps perfected, by the sound of running footsteps. Leo burst into the kitchen, followed closely by Toby. Leo was wearing his pajamas and a grin that split his face. "Pancakes?" Leo signed aggressively. "Big hungry," Soraya laughed, the tension in her chest finally snapping. "Yes, pancakes," she signed back, "but only if you help mix." Justin watched them. For the first time in 10 years, he rolled up the sleeves of his dress shirt, grabbed a whisk, and joined his family. 3 weeks later, the landscape of their lives had shifted again. Soraya sat in a private recovery suite at Mount Sinai Hospital. The room smelled of antiseptic and lilies, an enormous bouquet sent by the board of directors. But Soraya only had eyes for the bed. Toby lay there, a bandage wrapped around his head. Justin stood by the door, his arms crossed, looking nervous. He had insisted on paying for the surgery, the absolute best bilateral cochlear implants money could buy. He had flown in Dr. Orris, a specialist from Zurich. "You didn't have to do this," Soraya whispered, standing up as Toby began to stir. "The cost. It's too much." "It's an investment," Justin corrected her gently. "Toby is a brilliant boy. I've seen him beating Leo at chess. I want him to hear the world he's going to conquer. Besides," Justin looked down at his shoes, a rare moment of shyness. "I wasted years not listening. I won't let your brother live in silence if I can fix it." Dr. Aris entered the room, holding a tablet. "He's waking up. The swelling has gone down. We're ready to activate the external processes." Leo squeezed past Justin, standing right next to the bed. He held Toby's hand. Even though Leo was deaf and would remain so, he understood the gravity of this moment better than anyone. Toby blinked open his eyes. He looked groggy. "Okay, Toby," Dr. Aris said, adjusting a dial on the tablet. "This is going to feel strange at first, like a static shock, then a hum. Ready?" Toby nodded. The doctor tapped the screen. Toby's body went rigid. His eyes flew wide open. He gasped, his hands flying to his chest as if he'd been startled by a loud bang. He looked frantically around the room. "Toby!" Soraya said. Her voice caught in her throat. Toby's head snapped toward her. He stared at her mouth. Then he looked at the air conditioning vent in the ceiling. "Soraya?" he whispered. His voice was loud, unmodulated, raw. "I hear buzzing, like bees." Toby began to cry, not out of pain, but out of sheer sensory overload. "It's the air conditioner, baby," Soraya sobbed, pulling him into a hug. "That's the air conditioner. And this is me telling you I love you." Toby buried his face in her shoulder. Over his head, Soraya looked at Justin. The billionaire was wiping tears from his eyes. He didn't look away. In that sterile, white room, a bond was forged that no contract could ever dictate. They weren't employer and employee anymore. They were a pack. 6 months later, the snow had melted into a vibrant green spring. The Sterling estate, once a fortress of solitude, had transformed. The heavy drapes were pulled back. The windows were open. Soraya walked briskly down the hallway of the 80th floor of Sterling Tower. She wore a tailored navy suit, her hair pinned back in a sharp, professional chignon. She carried a stack of files. She stopped at a frosted glass door. The nameplate read, "Soraya Jenkins, Director of Accessibility and Inclusion." She wasn't just a figurehead. After the scandal, Justin had cleaned house. He realized that Sterling Dynamics had been building technology for the elite, ignoring the marginalized. Soraya had proposed Project Echo, an AI interface that translated sign language into real-time synthesized speech for video calls. She entered her office, dropping the files on her desk. She barely had time to sit before the door opened. Justin walked in. He looked different, younger. He was wearing a suit, but the tie was loosened, the top button undone. "I have a formal complaint," Justin announced, closing the door behind him. Soraya raised an eyebrow, suppressing a smile. "Oh, did the legal team find an issue with the Echo patent?" "No," Justin said, walking around her desk. "My complaint is that my director of accessibility is working on a Saturday, and my son, who is currently obsessed with fishing, is waiting by the helicopter to go to the Hamptons, and he refuses to leave without his partner. I just wanted to finish this quarterly review," Soraya said, though her resolve was already melting. "The review can wait," Justin said. He leaned against the edge of her desk, invading her personal space in the most delightful way. "We can't." Soraya's breath hitched. "We?" Justin's playful demeanor softened into something intense. "Soraya, look at me." She turned her chair to face him. 6 months ago, I was a ghost in my own life," Justin said quietly. "I had money, power, influence, and I was completely empty. Then a waitress spilled a glass of water and refused to be invisible." He reached into his jacket pocket. For a split second, Soraya felt a phantom jolt of anxiety, a flashback to the gala, to the blue heron watch being pulled from her bag. Justin saw the flinch. He didn't ignore it. He reached out and cupped her face. "Hey," he whispered, "never again. You are safe here. You are the safest person I know." He pulled out a small box. It wasn't velvet. It was wood, rich, dark walnut, hand-sanded, with clumsy but loving hinges. "Leo made the box in woodshop," Justin said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I chose what's inside." He opened it. There was no diamond. There was no gaudy rock that screamed billionaire. Instead, nestled in the silk, was a sapphire, deep ocean blue, set in a band of interwoven platinum and gold strands. "They say sapphire represents truth," Justin said, sliding off the desk to one knee. "You are the only person who ever told me the truth, Soraya, even when it could have cost you everything. You told me I was a bad father, so I could become a good one. You saved my son. You saved my company. But mostly, you saved me." Soraya's hands flew to her mouth. Tears pricked her eyes, hot and fast. "I don't need a governess," Justin said. "I don't need a director. I need you. I love you, Soraya Jenkins. Will you marry us? Me, Leo, the company, the chaos, the whole package." Soraya looked at him. She thought about the girl who used to count tips in the back of a diner, terrified of missing rent. She thought of the woman who stood on a stage and was handcuffed for a crime she didn't commit. And she looked at the man who had given her the power to rewrite her own story. She didn't speak. Not yet. She raised her hands, her fingers moving with the grace of a dancer. "Yes," she signed. "Yes, always." Justin smiled, a smile that reached his eyes and lit up the New York skyline behind him. He slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly. He stood up and pulled her into a kiss that tasted of promise. It wasn't a movie kiss. It was real. It was grounding. It was a promise that the war was over. From the hallway, a muffled giggle broke the silence. They broke apart to see the door cracked open. Leo and Toby were peeking through the gap, grinning like conspirators. Finally. Leo signed to Toby, rolling his eyes. They talk too much. Toby laughed, the sound clear and joyous. "About time, guys. The fish are waiting." Justin laughed, his forehead resting against Soraya's. "Come on," he whispered. "Let's go home." 3 years later. If you walk down West 57th Street now, L'Obsidian looks different. The intimidating black door has been replaced by clear glass. The hush of fear is gone, replaced by the hum of conversation. It was Friday night, and the restaurant was packed, but table 1, the corner booth, was reserved. Soraya sat there, looking radiant in a cream dress. Justin was next to her, looking younger than he had at 40. Across from them sat a teenage Leo, who was typing furiously on a new prototype communication device, and Toby, who was narrating a story about his baseball team with animated hand gestures. A new waiter approached the table. He was young, barely 20, with a nervous rash on his neck that Soraya recognized instantly. His hands were shaking as he held a silver tray of water glasses. As he reached across to place a glass for Justin, his elbow knocked the pepper grinder. It tumbled, hitting a bread plate with a loud clatter. The waiter froze. His face went pale. He squeezed his eyes shut, waiting for the yell, waiting for the manager, waiting to be told he was worthless. "I am so sorry, sir," the waiter stammered, terrified. I'll get my manager." "No need," a soft voice said. The waiter opened his eyes. Soraya Jenkins Sterling was looking at him. She wasn't looking at the mess. She was looking at his hands. She picked up the pepper grinder and set it upright. "It's okay," she said, her voice warm and steady. "Take a breath. You're doing a great job. It's a busy night." The waiter exhaled, his shoulders dropping 3 inches. He looked at her, as if she were a lifeline in a turbulent ocean. "Thank you, Mum. Thank you. And by the way," Soraya added, leaning in with a conspiratorial smile and pointing to Leo, "the boy in the hoodie, he wants the biggest chocolate milkshake you have. I know it's not on the menu, but check with the kitchen. Tell them Soraya sent you." The waiter smiled, a real, genuine smile, coming right up. As he walked away, lighter than he had arrived, Justin squeezed Soraya's hand under the table. He raised his hands, his signing now fluid and practiced. "You are nice," Justin signed. Soraya smiled, squeezing his hand back. "I am just listening," she signed. And in the middle of the noisy, vibrant restaurant, surrounded by the people she loved, Soraya realized she didn't need silence to be heard anymore. She had found her voice. Soraya Jenkins taught the world that power isn't about how loud you can shout, or how much money sits in your bank account. Real power is the ability to hear the things that are never spoken. It's the courage to stand between a bully and a victim, even when your voice is shaking. Justin Sterling thought he was saving a waitress from poverty, but in the end, she saved him from a life of silence. They proved that sometimes the most important language isn't English or French or money, it's love. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button. It helps us share more stories like this with the world. Do you know someone who speaks sign language or someone who overcame the odds? Tell us in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a moment of truth. Thanks for watching.